There's one main story literally leading the front pages today. It is this one, big fat no entry sign. If you are listening, not watching, that is on the front of the Sun. It refers, of course, to today finally being the day that you get the detail behind the so-called plan to stop the boats, the small boat crossings. I have to say, though, there's been lots of to and froing, lots of debate, as you would always expect on this kind of thing, and also lots of criticism. In a nutshell, it basically, you'd see new laws which would see people that have arrived illegally banned from claiming asylum. You'd see a legal cap on refugee numbers, and there'd be a legal duty on the Home Secretary to deport them as soon as possible. There's also lots of other angles to this, such as where would people be detained, the talk of buying former military bases, etc. Martin Daubney, I'll kick off with you. Your thoughts, please.
Well, when I initially heard this, I thought, as we've had previous times before, howling into the void on the White Cliffs of Dover, tough talk. But I thought they're about as likely to stop the boats as King Canute could stop the tide. The forces are simply too great against them. And that, of course, is the resistance from lawyers, from the NGOs, from charities, from the media. However, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt this time and say they're definitely making some of the right noises. And the key detail is they've defined what is illegal. Because until now, everyone's gone, oh, you can't enter Britain illegally. But this key piece of legislation will say, if you abandon your documents and if you arrive on our shores without legal documentation, you are illegal. And at that point, you forfeit all of your rights to even claiming asylum. Now, where they are sent to, bear in mind we haven't sent a single person to Rwanda. That was a kind of showcase policy that just hasn't delivered. We're going to need a lot more places. Airfields have been mentioned. Now, when that was proposed in Linton-on-Ouse, I went to Linton-on-Ouse and spoke to locals who were absolutely appalled about the idea of thousands of young men wandering around the streets of a tiny village. But if they are more like containment centres where people can be quickly processed and then sent away, and we have territories overseas, we have the Falklands Islands, we have the Ascension Islands, we do have sovereign territories that could also work. It would be a lot cheaper in the long run to go down this route. Now, another key thing about this is I think it's very cleverly going to force the ferret down the rabbit hole of what the Labour Party actually think about this. Because they've been sitting on the fence, just like with Brexit, and I think it's going to make the next election a case, if you want to stop the boats, you vote Tory, and force the Labour Party to admit they are a party of open borders.
Indeed. James, your thoughts?
Yes, so it's not going to work because it's not going to stop displacement. The reason why people are leaving their countries, it's not going to stop that. It's not going to stop people still trying to come into the UK. The boat route started up when they started closing down other routes. There aren't safe and legal routes for people to take, so that's not going to stop. It won't clear the backlog. There's this huge backlog, like 165,000, 166,000. This won't do anything to clear that. That requires resources in the Home Office so that people can be processed, so their claims can be processed and judged whether they should be granted asylum or not. It's kind of gross to say that someone claiming asylum is no longer legal. People should have a legal right to claim asylum. Whether that is judged to be granted is a different question. You don't have a right to have it granted, but you definitely have a right to claim asylum. And I think, Michelle, what you said at the beginning about whether it's a distraction and whether it's going to be used politically, that's exactly what this is. This is a problem that is basically created by the government. They created the backlog through cuts and through poor resourcing. We've had larger numbers coming in the past beforehand, and we didn't have such big resources. We have more asylum claimees and more asylum acceptances in this century than we have right now.
You say about it's not, your first point was it's not going to stop the displacement, the reasons why. I mean, let's be honest about this. People are coming from Albania via France. What's causing that mass displacement then?
OK, but the majority of people who are claiming asylum are not from Albania via France.
So the majority of people that are making the crossings currently...
No, they're not.
In terms of as a nationality,
they're not the majority.
They are.
They're not the majority.
As a nationality.
They're not the majority. They're a minority. They're the largest minority. But, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, and so what, Yemen, and so what, Eritrea, these are not countries where this is not going to do anything at all to slow down the creation of people of displacement. Now, hold on. And this is not something that we can avoid, because the number of people who are set to be displaced over the next decades is going up dramatically.
But when you say...
because food systems are being interrupted, because the climate is being changed, which is going to have more conflict over resources. So we actually have to work out how people who are fleeing where they're fleeing from, where they can go. And this is not going to do anything about that.
Can I ask you a question? Do you believe in the concept of borders? Do you believe in the concept of passports that should be controlled, borders that are controlled via passports? Yes or no?
Yeah, but that's got nothing to do with...
So you do. So if somebody arrives here without a passport, and under this new legislation, they will be arriving here illegally, and they can be dealt with accordingly. That's the point. It's defining what illegal is.
Okay,
and this is costing £10 million a day.
So it's
surely that
wrong,
money,
though. Okay,
that money could be spent on the NHS, on pay rises.
Because you can't...
Let him
go. Claiming asylum is not illegal. So you can't say...
Arriving would be.
Fine,
under this.
But claiming asylum cannot be made illegal. Claiming asylum cannot be made illegal.
No,
it doesn't mean that asylum has to be granted, and it doesn't mean that someone can't have broken a law before they've claimed asylum, but you cannot make claiming asylum illegal, and that is a very good thing.
But you can forfeit an individual's right to claim if they were proven to have entered the country illegally, and 90% of people arriving via dinghies do not have documentation. Under this legislation, they would be arriving illegally, and they would forfeit their right to claim asylum. That's what this legislation does.
The government has said that what this legislation will do will breach the law and thereby make it illegal to claim asylum in these circumstances, but it won't actually do that. We know that this is a breach of international law.
Well, they claim it's not, so that remains to be seen.
Hold on, but we know that it is going to be seen, and why do we have to take the government's word for it when we don't on every other issue?
On that we can agree, but if this then is deferred to Strasbourg, because that's what's already been said today, so we'll have to consult with Strasbourg, and if the Labour Party, the SNP, the House of Lords, the Green Party start saying, actually, we don't agree with this either, then I think politically it's a very clever card to play, because it will force a position. At the moment, the Labour Party don't have a position.
This is the... OK, right, so now we're getting to the nub of it. So this is really about, as you say, having an election with the same Tony Abbott slogan from Australia
Operation
from 10 years ago.
Yes.
Stop the boat, stop the boat, stop
I think that's where it's going.
Yes, of course that's where it's going, and that's the point, because this government has been in power for 13 years. And people are poorer. Most people, their living standards are worse. Hold on, wait. Pay is on average lower.
We had COVID.
Hold on. That's
well, if the country's such a mess, then, because of this government, why are so many people desperate to get here, then?
Hold on. The public sector, public services have been cut, but billionaire wealth has soared. These are the things that the government doesn't want to talk about, or the crisis it's made itself, the backlog it itself created. So it wants to create a very simple dividing line and focus everybody's attention and anger in this direction. And to be honest, we shouldn't fall for it. It could save
their backsides politically. It really could. It's as simple as this. If they don't deal with this, they're going to get wiped out in the Red Wall, and the Labour Party will get into power. This, I think, is very clever politics. If it is a binary choice, do you want to stop the boats or not? Do you want to get Brexit done or not? Then it's 2019 all over again. That's what the Tories want to be in that position.
OK, so firstly, this isn't going to so-called stop the boats. It isn't going to prevent people being displaced. It's not going to prevent people wanting to come to this country to seek a place of safety. It's not going to actually prevent any of those things. It's not going to clear the backlog that we have in the asylum cases. It's not going to do any of those things. All it is going to do is have the media chasing its own tail. The opposition will not change the subject, will walk straight into the trap, I'm absolutely sure. I don't deny that from the narrow, amoral, in fact, immoral position of the government, it's clever politics.
It's immoral, surely.
But it's bad for this country. It's not the decent, humane values
Well,
that we should be putting forward. And it won't do anything for people's bills. It won't do anything for people's pay. It won't do anything to deal with the fact that the super rich have got all of the money.
Let him come back. Go on.
Would you not concur that it's immoral, amoral and wrong to cheat the system to the tune of £10 million per day in hotel costs alone, when that money could be spent on all of the aforementioned things that you want?
Okay.
Pay rises for nurses, pay rises for teachers, fire people...
And why is there the backlog? Why is there the backlog? Why in 2014...
Stem the tide and save the money.
Why in 2014 were almost 100% of asylum applications processed in 6 months? So we could say either yes or no and then deal with it. Why is it now almost 0%?
Because there are too many to process.
OK.
But hang on, do you concede that? So when you go back years and years, you're talking, I don't know, hundreds, small numbers of thousands. Now, in last year alone, I think you had 45,000 people using these small boat crossings.
You're talking about a roughly double in the number of asylum applications from 2014 to today.
It'll be 80,000
There were double what there are. There were double what there were last year. In 2000, 2001, 2002, we didn't have this. We didn't have this backlog. So there is a capacity problem within the state. That's true, and there are more cases coming in. But is anything?
You'd wave them ashore.
Come on, look. There's no reason to be so asinine about it.
Why not? This legislation would make it illegal and stop it. That's the point.
We're trying to have a serious discussion about a serious issue. You can't just say, "Oh, right, so you just wave them all ashore." I mean, that isn't the discussion that we should be having at all.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course.
Albania, I think we would all concur, it is, by most definitions, a safe country. Do you think we should have a situation, so Sweden, for example, a couple of years ago, they wrote a bill, whatever you want to call it, which said if you've got a safe country, and it provided a list, we won't even entertain asylum cases from so-called safe countries. Do you think we should have a situation in this country where you say, right, let's just pick Albania as the most recent example. That's a safe country. If you even try and even apply for asylum, no thank you, off you go back to your safe country. Do you think that's reasonable?
So I don't think that you have to do that, but you can have something that approximates that, which isn't as extreme. So you can say that.
Do you think it's extreme? No. I'm asking, because I've listened to you. Do you think it's extreme?
Let me answer your question.
I know, but I want to rephrase it. Do you think it's extreme saying to people, right, that you come from a safe country via, by the way, another safe country, so actually, point blank, no exceptions, there will be no credence paid to your application?
So I think that in the case of a country which is generally safe for most people, you say very few people from that country will be accepted.
Why any at all? It's safe.
Well, there could be circumstances. I'm not going to say point blank that I know about every human trafficking, sex slavery or anything else that might happen in a particular country, but I would say that if a country is safe, probably they're not being granted asylum. The countries where people are being granted asylum for, 95% of applications and so on, are Afghanistan, are Syria, are Yemen, are Libya, are Eritrea.
Well, that doesn't stack up with the numbers. The biggest entrance, for example, is from Iran. You know, and you know, that's not a war zone. That's a relative.
You don't know about political persecution in Iran.
No, but what I'm saying is,
you don't know about political persecution.
I'm not talking about that.
You don't think there's any reason that anyone would claim asylum from Iran?
What I'm saying
Why would people not claim asylum from Iran?
What I'm saying is, James,
let him answer. Yeah.
Is it our legal duty to offer a livelihood, NHS services, school places, benefits, housing? Is it our legal and moral obligation to offer that to anybody in the world who wants to come here? I would say no. And if you think that people aren't gaming the system and coming in with pre-arranged stories of how to get through these interviews, you're living in cloud cuckoo land.
Okay,
this legislation forfeits the right to abuse the system, and that can only be a good thing. It's what people have voted for time and time again since 2015, and to stand in the way of it, I think will make the Labour Party get obliterated.
I don't care about the Labour Party being obliterated, but I want to come back to this point.
Make it very brief, though, because I've got lots of other things.
Do I think that if someone is coming from persecution or a difficult circumstance, as a basic human, as a decent person, as a good neighbour, they should be helped. Yes, I do think that. Yeah. I think that should be the basis of the values that we live under, and government policy should be set on that basis.
Those people can be identified and helped, but they are a minority.
Yeah, but hang on, because we're also missing a basic, simple fact here. Those people, of course, anyone would say that if you're being tortured, persecuted, of course, anyone would want them to be safe. Are they not safe in France, though?
There are perfectly decent reasons why people come to Britain, like they might speak the language, they might have a family connection, they might have some reason why...
But are they safe in France?
Well, I don't know, but there might be some reason why they want to... Some totally legitimate reason why they want to live their life here rather than somewhere else.
Yeah.
And you...
Freebies. That might be a part of it. It could well be a part of it.
Well, something tells me that we've not quite concluded this conversation, not least just because James has chucked his biro down in sheer exasperation with that last... disgust, actually. He's chucked his biro down at disgust with Martin's last comment, which is he reckons people are coming here for freebies. So, this conversation is going to rumble on. I'm going to return back to it throughout this programme, I think, because I don't think we've yet wrapped it up, and I know that you guys are itching as well to come into this as well tonight. So I'm going to return to that, but I will be taking a quick break. We've just been getting into the top story, which is, of course, Rishi Sunak's plans to try and stop the so-called small boats. Lots of you have been getting in touch. Richard, I admire your optimism. You say, Michelle, you don't get a job at Goldman Sachs without having an elite mind. Rishi Sunak is tackling the boat crisis with decisive and exacting a bold plan. He would not commit to something that he couldn't deliver on. Really? I appreciate and respect your optimism, but do you honestly believe that many politicians don't make statements that they know that they can't follow up on? But nonetheless, I do appreciate your optimism. You might have, I don't know if you've seen earlier on, Rishi Sunak did a statement probably about half an hour ago. Our political journalist Tom Howard asked the question, do you have a plan B, Rishi Sunak, if basically it doesn't fly with the lawyers? The short answer to that was no, he doesn't. So that would be interesting too. Ray, you are not so optimistic. You say, I'll believe it when I see it. I do not trust the government as far as I can throw them. Mixed, I have to say on this. Rob says, this will be a nice trick if it works. John says, let's see if the actions match the words. Now, just before the break, we was getting into the cut and thrust of this. Martin was just talking about the pull facts, if you like. Martin said it's all about the freebies. That's what's pulling people here. James Schneider wasn't happy. He chucked his biro. In disgust, he said, Gavin emailed in and said, please, can you tell that fella that biros have feelings too? So there you go. I've told you that. Martin, let's revisit that comment. What were you referring to?
I mean, I think we need to be sort of calm about the situation, and that is the entire immigration debate that we've basically been denied since the 1970s, and which laid the foundations for Brexit, was never about pulling up the drawbridge, was never about stopping immigration like some sort of racist, small-minded country. And in fact, the latest story in the country, in your show, shows that we're a tolerant, accepting nation.
Yeah, it does.
It was about controlling numbers and speed of entry. And nobody can deny that we don't have a situation now where it's off the scale. We cannot cope in terms of the cost, in terms of the amount of ingress and the strain that places on the housing stock, on public services and on the public purse, which we should spend the money far better elsewhere. Of course, it is our duty and obligation to offer help to the neediest in the world, as it always historically has. This isn't about that. This is about people arriving illegally, gaming the system, because, let's face it, we offer one of the most compelling packages on earth for economic migrants, and the figures prove that. Let's dissociate the two things, genuine need with those gaming the system. That's what this is about.
Well, it's not, because if you did want to do that, you would put in the resources to be able to process the cases to see who was an asylum seeker who should have their claim accepted and who shouldn't, rather than engaging in mistruths about people, casting aspersions on why they're coming, drumming up hatred. It's not in line with the moral or ethical values of any religion, any humanism, or anything like that, which basically comes down to treat your neighbour as you'd like to be treated yourself. The way in which what this policy is meant to do doesn't do that. The way in which you're talking about it doesn't do that. It is not the kind of sensible debate that you claim that you want to have. It's kind of attacking people, casting aspersions on their motivations, when you must accept that a decent number of people who are coming to this country to claim asylum are doing so because they're coming from extremely difficult circumstances.
I agree with that.
I agree with that. Know that.
And I've just stated
to just
that.
say that people are coming here for freebie. Yes, of course. The
you don't think anybody does that?
The people from Yemen.
You don't think anybody is doing that? You don't think anybody arriving on a dinghy, say from Albania, is arriving here for a better life rather than fleeing a war zone? Seriously.
Do you know how to judge that? You have a properly resourced system that can process the cases. Does this do anything? Is there any line in this about resourcing the?
Not yet. We haven't seen the detail.
Oh, we haven't seen the detail. Right, brilliant.
It's been announced today. Give it a minute.
So there's nothing in it at all about boosting our capacity to actually process the cases. No, not at all. Of course there isn't, because it is the purpose of this is exactly as you said. It is political. It is because this is a dying government that wishes to distract from its gross failures, and it knows that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right?
They have spectacularly failed
that is what
on
this
controlling
is about.
our borders.
That is what this is about. It is not about dealing with housing, health, education. No,
right,
it
so
is
you're
not
saying
in
it's
the
about
slightest.
politics?
Yeah, it's about politics.
Right, so press pause if it's about politics. So just a few things I just want to throw out there, if I may. Right. Small boat arrivals by nationality, January to December 2022. So Albanians, 12,301. The next group was Afghans, 8,006. Iran, 5,006. Iraq, 4,003. Syria, so you're rapidly declining. So whilst not an overall majority, the majority of people making those crossings are from Albania. I would certainly argue that is a very safe country. You talk about resources. What is it you expect people to do, right? So when you have got tens and tens of thousands of people, 45, 48,000 last year, do you propose that you just have this ongoing, ad infinitum, vast array of resources sitting there to be able to process however many people come? It could be 100,000 for all we know. What, you think you should just resource ad infinitum?
I mean, it isn't going to be 100,000, but
how do you know?
But it'll be 80,000 next year. You double this.
It should
how
be.
How can you categorically say it's not going to double? It's almost doubled year on year. So how do you know it's not going to be 100,000 if it was 45-ish last year?
OK, well, it's substantially less than it was 20 years ago, 19 years ago, 18 years ago. But anyway, should we sufficiently resource it that we can quickly process people's claims to see if they are entitled to our help and they should have our support? Yes, of course we should.
Right, and very, very, very briefly, you said it's all political, very briefly, because I am in trouble in my ear. What's Labour's plan, then, if this is political?
I've got absolutely no idea.
Well, you and the rest of the nation are all in agreement there, because no one does. It's very easy to criticise all of this. It's very, very, very easy to lay the blame at the government. Apparently everything is the fault of the government these days. But what, then, is the answer from the opposition? Very loud criticism there, absolutely fascinating. What would you do about it, though, to any Labour supporters, members, etc.? Give me your thoughts.